It consistently disturbs me to be a member of a species with such a deep history of repressed minorities that adamantly refuses to learn from its mistakes. Every era of history seems to include at least one minority group clawing its way against overwhelming currents of a social river in an effort to just have basic human rights. That means there's also an ever-present majority attempting to demonize and quell the minority uprising, as if its own human rights will be somehow diluted if another class of people receives them as well. Those I currently weep for the most in their effort to receive basic respect and human rights are homosexuals. On a regular basis, I encounter both young and old people reeking of the familiar ignorance that festers into a stench of homophobia. It is nothing short of a phobia to hold contempt against homosexuals for their sexual orientation alone. It's a hatred spawned in the cesspool of fear, fear of the unknown, fear of the misunderstood, fear of that which is different, fear of the possibility from those who mock, sully, and chide homosexuals that they may belong to that group themselves, but know of no alternatives to distancing themselves from such an association without publicly and proudly ostracizing that group. Those critical of the homosexual lifestyle cast massive boulders through their own glass walls, assuming they holster the right to pass judgment on the sexual preferences of other people. They wield bitter swords of intolerant language and unconstitutional legislative proposals while lifting shields of blatant ignorance to repel any logical, research-based education on the matter. The very education which could evaporate their fears of the unknown, if only they'd accept it, is routinely rejected by that stone-casting, right-stripping, fear-stricken majority. Any intellectually honest homophobe would certainly admit that if I asked him or her to choose to be a homosexual for a day, just to prove it was a choice, that he or she couldn't possibly make that choice. We do not have the luxury of choosing what we like and dislike. But even if we did, and people did choose to be attracted to members of the same gender, there would be no acceptable reason to dislike, distrust, or disrespect those who did or do so. The sexual relationship between two consenting homosexual adults has no bearing on the lives of those beyond their bedroom walls. No matter how graphic the events that take place in a homosexual bedroom or a homophobic mind, there is no connection between those events and the lives of the heterosexual populace. It matters not what some holy doctrine claims about a victimless consensual interaction between people you don't know. Until you can draw a negative consequence to yourself from their personal interactions, you have no place in complaining about them, let alone condemning people for it. Until we learn to start respecting all people as individuals with basic human rights, regardless of their skin tone, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, language, religion, or sexual orientation, we cannot pretend to have the maturity to tackle larger issues on our planet. Once we have the courage and fundamental knowledge to treat people different from ourselves as equals to ourselves, then we might be able to achieve some reasonable bastion of progress.